Oh, morning. You know, I was, I'm tired. I was kind of thinking earlier about something, but now I can't remember what it was. So, I guess I'll just talk about something else, because I can't remember what I was originally going to talk about. But, I don't know if I've talked about it before, but, I've had a few different cars. The first car I ever had was a Ram 2500, 1999. And it was a pretty good truck. It was just a pretty normal truck, but when I was 18, or no, I was still 17, because it was the start of my senior year in high school. I was taking a friend home from band practice, and I was driving up a hill and my engine threw a rod. And so that truck just was toast, pretty much. And then and after that, I got an old 99 Mustang from my cousin. It's his old car. Well, my uncle had it at the time, because my cousin hadn't driven it in years, and so they sold it to me. Well, to my dad. He gave it to me. But that was a fun old car. It was a stick shift, and so I had to learn how to drive stick, but I had a lot of fun with it. It had a lot of problems. It would, the transmission was pretty good. A little here and there, it would have a little bit of a problem shifting, but not very much. But the main problem was that the fuel injector, the whole fuel injector system was kind of old, and I think clogged up with something. It would have cost a lot to kind of get it repaired, and so I didn't really ever want to spend the time. Oh, I know I'm talking slow this morning. It's just, this whole week I've just been tired. Just passed a speed trap. Not speeding, but every time I pass the cop, I always, like, I'm sure other people do this too, but every time I pass a cop, I kind of I'm like, oh no, is he gonna pull out behind me and pull me over? Even though, I don't speed hardly ever. And like, I've never been doing anything wrong when I'm driving by him, but it's just one of those things where you're just like, oh, am I gonna get pulled over? Am I doing something wrong that I didn't know about? Is my tail light out? Or my headlights out? But then, yeah, I don't know why it's always so nerve-wracking, kind of driving by a cop and he pulls out. It's just like, even if you know you did nothing wrong, you just feel like you're gonna get a ticket for something. I think it's just because there are so many rules for driving that are just like, not obscure, but just like, you're technically supposed to check all your tail lights and blinkers every single time you turn the car on. Like, I remember going through driver's ed, and I read that part, and I remember it because I thought, that's ridiculous. You can't, every single time you turn on your car, get out, check that your blinkers are going, check that your taillights are going, have somebody else, behind you checking you. But that's what they say is required. But yeah, if your taillight goes out, then you just are out of luck. I know I had trouble passing an inspection on my truck last time. I had to get one renewed, which is actually, I didn't even realize I need to do that this month. Yeah, I better do that sometime. Anyway, but yeah, my taillights are fine, but the brake light at the top of my cab above the bed of my truck was burnt out, which, like, it's not even a main brake light. A lot of cars, especially smaller cars, don't even have a light there, so I didn't think it was that important, but apparently you can't pass inspection without it. And it wasn't even both of them, it was only one side. So it was a redundant light. But yeah, it wouldn't let me pass inspection without it, so I had to replace it. Anyway, I was talking about my cars that I've driven. So there's that 99 Mustang. Then problem that happened with that, well, first my brake pad actually shattered. Like, a rock flew up and hit the brake pad, and I guess the ceramic or whatever it is just shattered, because we found pieces of it still in there and other pieces, but most of it was gone, and just the metal backing of the brake pad was off. But luckily, since it was a stick, it was easier to kind of downshift and slow down without worrying too much. And then it had a handbrake that I could use. But yeah, that was interesting. And then it also had a I was saying it had the fuel pump issue. But then, so the fuel pump were getting worse and just was not, it was just dying all the time. So what we ended up doing is just selling that one to somebody who had the time to fix it. Got my grandpa's old truck, which is what I'm driving now, which is the 02 F-150, I want to say. So it's gotten used to driving it, but I remember it being my grandpa's car, and so sometimes, a lot of times I still think about that. Because I remember when I was only like, I think I was only like 7 or 8 probably, I would sit in the middle seat and my grandpa would let me turn the steering wheel on the way home. He probably shouldn't have done that, but it was a cool grandpa move. Alright, I gotta go. Wait a minute. Oh. You know, it gets a little warm in cars in the summer, but I don't know if anybody else does this, but I kind of like when it's a real hot summer day and you open up your car door and your car's just like 120 degrees for a minute. Honestly, that feels kind of good to me, and I kind of like just sitting there in the heat for a minute, but then letting it cool down after that. But I don't like that when I'm getting my daughter in the car, because I'm just the classic, new dad. I mean, I guess I'm not a new dad anymore. She's almost 2, but I always just get super worried about her. It's like, overly hot or cold or any bad weather at all. I'm just like, oh, can't get a single drop of rain on her. But if it's just me, I don't care. But if my wife or my daughter's in the car, I want it to be nice and cool first, and make sure they don't get caught in the rain, don't get too cold, don't get too warm. It's funny how it works like that, because when it's me that is being affected by like the weather or whatever, I don't really care too much, as long as I'm not in it for a long time. I know I'm gonna be fine. But when it's somebody else that I care about, especially somebody close to me, I'm just super concerned and don't want them to overheat or freeze or whatever. I know every night we keep our house at around 70 degrees at night. And I'll be worried that my daughter's going to get too cold because she doesn't like blankets, so she'll kick them off. So if I know she's asleep good, I'll try and put a blanket on her a lot of times, because I'm worried she'll get too cold, even though I know 70 degrees is a completely reasonable temperature to be in with pajamas on and nothing covering you. I just worry about her. And yeah, if it gets too warm, I don't want her to overheat, and so I'll be constantly giving her water, trying to get her to drink it, making sure she's okay. But then I won't really care about myself too much, because I know when I'm not feeling good most of the time. And it's just one of those things, you know. But yeah, I like it colder at night a lot of times, and I like to bundle up. But then in the winter, I keep it around 68 at night. But I like it kind of cooler, and cuddling up under the blankets. You know, when you have a little kid, it's kind of hard to stay in bed long after they wake up, because they want to get up and run about usually. But I like a good Saturday morning where you just kind of lay back and rest. Even after you wake up, just stay in bed for a little bit, watch some TV or something. Bad traffic today. But yeah, it's always kind of interesting just looking out and seeing a lot of people do Saturdays differently. I know my parents don't sleep in hardly at all, and they like to get up and get going on Saturday so they can get a lot done. And my wife's parents are the same way. And some Saturdays, when we get up early and then get out of bed and just start doing stuff immediately, it does feel good to get a lot done, but it doesn't happen too often. You know, I need to, this Saturday, I need to do some work in our yard, because it's been a couple weeks. The grass isn't too long, but there was a bad hailstorm I talked about, and it knocked a bunch of branches out of the tree, so I need to kind of reattach those branches. Then after I reattach those branches, I need, or not reattach, what am I saying? My brain just was not focused for a second, because there was somebody who cut me off in traffic. Anyway, what I was saying, I need to rake up those branches and get them out of the yard so that I can mow the grass. You know, we don't have a ton of extra money, and it's just a very small side yard, probably maybe a couple hundred square feet total. But so I just got a mechanical push mower that is not electric or gas. It's just old-fashioned. You push it and it spins. It works really well for what we have, which is just a little bit of grass. Don't really have to keep it too uniform. But I like it because it doesn't take long to get going. It gets stuck on even the smallest sticks. So you really have to rake beforehand, but I mean, you should do that with an electric or gas anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And then you gotta scoop all the dog poop up, because there is a bit of that. But I'm thinking this Saturday I'm gonna try and get all that done when it's cool in the morning, and then I'm going to try to get started. I had a plan. I'm gonna try to create a table for miniature wargaming, 6 foot by 3 foot, because that's the standard for the main games I play. I have a piece of plywood ready to cut down to size. I just need to trim it down and then figure out what I want to do about the legs, because I'd like it to be about, I don't know, I was thinking about the height, and it'd be nice if it was a good height where you can just kind of rest standing up. But if you're sitting down, you can still see onto the table. Because, like, I could do, like, a 4 foot tall table, but then it'd be a little harder if you're sitting in a chair to get up on the table and move things around. And the games can last a couple of hours, so you don't want to not be able to sit down at all. But I also, we're supposed to be getting some like bar stools from my in-laws next time we visit them, so maybe if we get those, we can use them, make it a little taller. But that's all I have time for now, so talk more about it later. You know, it is a lot harder to get toddlers to eat food. Like, they like eating, but at the same time, they just don't always want to eat right when you say it. Our daughter is being very picky recently, and especially today. She was like, she had some chicken nuggets, french fries, and then applesauce and a cheese stick. And she ate like half the cheese stick immediately, ate her applesauce, and then ate most of her fries, and then wanted to be done. And I know that she wasn't full, she just was having a toddler moment, because I mean, there's been days before where she'll just be real hungry and she'll eat like 3 chicken nuggets, an entire cheese stick, a thing of applesauce, and then still have room for more. And then there's other days like today where she just acts like she's not hungry at all, but she's still eating a little bit. It's just hard to always have her eat. You know, kids growing up is kind of weird, because there's different stages, and they have different kind of attitudes towards everything, and it changes week to week as well. Just makes it kind of hard sometimes, but it's always ends up okay, and it's always a lot of fun in the end, even when it's hard. Oh, it's already the third recording of the day. I'm starting to kind of not measure my day, but kind of pace my day a little bit based off of the scheduling of these recordings. And it's weird how that happens, and you just kind of do things at different times. Like, kind of find different ways to measure time, because my brain always does these weird kind of things where it'll just kind of latch on to some piece of information for no particular reason, just a little bit more than usual. And I think it's kind of like how when you start thinking about having kids, suddenly babies are everywhere, and when something happens to you, suddenly it seems to happen to everybody else, when the truth is it happens all the time, no matter what. But when you have some personal experience with something, you notice the occurrences around you more than you normally would. And so it's always just kind of, I'm just very fascinated by the way that the human brain works, and the way that we do a lot of things that don't really make 100% of sense, but our brain has all these little tricks and workarounds to make us understand our world better. And it shows up in a lot of weird ways in the modern world. Because, like, survivorship bias is a good example that a lot of people know, where if you have something like, the famous example is airplanes in World War II would come back, like, I'm sure it's not really a true story, or there's very specific examples, but pretty much there was some place where airplanes were coming back with bullet holes in the wing, at the edges of the wings, and in like the tail and back end of the plane, and didn't have as many bullet holes in the center of the plane, and so they kind of armored up, or somebody suggested armoring up those outside areas, but really the issue was the places there weren't bullet holes, because that meant the ones that did get those bullet holes weren't coming back. And so it just kind of made it it's just one of those things that's a famous example, whether it's true or not, of the phenomenon, but it happens all the time. We as humans just kind of put different ideas, or have different ideas like that, where we see something and we just kind of have our brains set to work a certain way, so that we end up ignoring the underlying issue, or not really understanding what the underlying issue is in the first place. And just it's a lot of psychology, and I just find it very fascinating. And it's like, things like, also, stereotypes are kind of the same thing, where our brain kind of tries to construct prefabricated ideas and tries to categorize people really well. Because we do this with a lot of things, pretty much everything. But what happens is your brain wants to categorize things to help you understand them quicker, easier, and better. And as a result of that, you tend to make generalized assumptions. And when it comes to people, this results in stereotyping, which can end in racism. But that's why it's kind of easy to fall into that sometimes, because your brain is always trying to make stereotypes because your brain thinks it's making your life easier by providing you somewhat reliable data on a certain subject. But because it's just based off of the things you've seen or heard, not necessarily actual good data, it's just based off of the data you have, which is repeated by other people you're around. So if you're around a bunch of racists, you're going to be racist. Not because you inherently think that things that are racist, but just because your brain is going to pick up on that and reinforce it to you, because it's trying to do something more useful, but it's just, we are very bad at differentiating between true and false information. But it happens with all kinds of things, like thinking that people who have a certain accent are dumb. That's just the same kind of thing. Or thinking that people with glasses are smarter. Thinking that people with, long hair aren't as responsible, because I know that's an issue. And there's just all these things that kind of are stereotypes and are not true at least half the time. Because when you have a group of people, it's not gonna all be the same. But it always ends up, people don't realize that their brain is doing this in the background. And so they just assume that because they feel a certain way about somebody, they must have some kind of special insight. But no, it's just that your brain has evolved over the course of time to kind of make generalized assumptions so that it can make quicker decisions and doesn't have to wait for data. Your brain is just a really weird kind of hodgepodge mix of tons of different shortcuts and things that are there to help, but are not always the best solution. They're just the solution that made sense at the time. And that's one thing that I know, like, people who study and talk about evolution, I've heard from them, it's a problem where a lot of people don't always believe what things are evolutionarily, because evolution doesn't make the perfect thing. It just tends towards advantage, and people kind of misunderstand that to think that evolution magically chooses what's the best thing ever. And so people say, like, why didn't animals evolve wheels? Wheels are much better than legs for getting around. And it's like, well, you can't skip straight to wheels, and if you had rounded legs, they would be terrible until you turn them into wheels. So it's actually worse to try to get to wheels, so animals can't have wheels because of that, because the intermediary steps are too hard. Well, that's all the time I got for now. Welcome back. Final segment of the day. You know, I don't remember at what point today I was talking about my plans for that table, but if it wasn't the last one, oh well, because I want to talk about that now. So yeah, I was thinking for that table, the table to play war games on, the first one at least, I think I'm gonna make 6 foot by 3 foot, because that's the standard. And so I'm going to I'm gonna put legs on it, but I want to make the legs removable, so I need to figure out a good way to do that. I guess it depends on how I create the legs, because I could either latch them on, or because I could do like 2 latches per leg, and that would probably keep them on good. Or I could do some kind of pin system, but pretty much I want legs on there because I want to be able to have one side that is completely flat, and so I can use it with any kind of terrain that I want. And then I want to have a second side that has permanent terrain on it, so that I could do a little more. Or maybe, I don't know. It'd be fun to kind of do semi-permanent. So like built onto something that there were attachment points for. But I don't know what those attachment points would be. I could put like holes in it maybe, but that would affect the other side, so I'd rather not. But, you know, if I made if I put a hole in each corner and then made the legs stick through, and then you could put you wouldn't even need a pin then. That would actually work better. So put a hole, so make the legs have a dowel sticking up that can be put through a hole in each corner. That way it can hold all of it above the ground either direction. That is a good idea. I mean, it wouldn't be the most stable necessarily, but I think it would work fine. I just need to find something to be the dowels on top of the legs. I also need to figure out, that's what I was talking about earlier, is how tall I wanted the legs to be. So I could... I guess I could have multiple heights of legs if I did it that way. Have as many legs as you want. But yeah, that'd work. Just whatever you have, you need to put a certain size dowel on or in, and then they would slot in as a leg. That's a pretty good idea. I'd need more materials for the legs, but I could at least temporarily just leave the holes, no legs. I'd like the holes to be, the holes need to be able to be reached from both sides. Or I could, if I wanted to put terrain over where one of the holes is, just leave a hole in the terrain. for it. That could work. And like make the terrain removable somehow. But I have another piece of plywood, so I'm not too worried about the whole reversible thing. For now, it can just be a single piece of wood with no legs at all, and I can just put it on top of other tables that have legs. So I'm not too worried about that. But anyway, I wonder... I wonder what I could do for terrain, because I kind of had this fun idea. So the local game store that I go to has these kind of painting competitions, and the one for last year that was a full army required that you have a 2-foot by 2-foot piece of like a piece of terrain to display your army on, pretty much. And so I did that, and that was a ton of fun. But I'm thinking if they do that again this year, which I figure they will, I don't see them changing it, so. But I was going to use that as an opportunity to create more terrain, and then create smaller 1-foot by 1-foot portions as well, so that I can build up to having interchangeable terrain pieces. I thought that'd be a pretty cool idea. And so I've made a couple of those, one 2-foot by 2-foot, one 1-foot by 1-foot. And it's a good way of doing it in sections, so it's not such an overwhelming project. But I also think it'd be cool to do a single large table that is just one entire project. But one thing I liked about those smaller ones is I was able to put a piece of steel, like a very, very thin, cheap piece of steel underneath the terrain, but pretty much that made it magnetic. And I did that, the first one I did had some varied heights, and I did that using steel washers. And so that was an interesting one, I thought. But yeah, I've also been thinking of using the steel washers for point of interests for the game, because in Star Wars Legion, with the updated rule set, there are points of interest that are the objectives, and they have 2-inch circles, like 2-inch diameter, and that's how big the little washers I have are. I got really thin but really wide washers, so they're like, I think they're 1/32 or 1/16 inch thick, and 2 inches diameter with a pretty small hole in the middle. But yeah, so I was thinking of decorating some of those to use as variable terrain heights. Or not terrain heights, variable terrain points of interest. And so I could just make one that's like some boxes stacked up, and can make another that's like a signal thing. Because I have some miscellaneous pieces that I can use. I think it'll turn out pretty good, but it should be interesting trying to kind of make different terrain bits. It'd be fun. Anyway, yeah, so I was thinking for the table, I could then, kind of just make something a little more permanent than that in like one big kind of display, and then I could have another table that's just the extras, more like the little sectional pieces, and then I can also take the sectional pieces and put them on top of the other bigger one if I need to. But I could have that be like more of a large scale feature, and then have smaller points of interest and featurettes on top of it. Well, that's all the time we have for today. So, thank you all for listening. And if you have something you want me to talk about, feel free to leave a comment. I know nobody has yet, but... It may or may not get read. Yeah, I'll read it. I mean, there's no comments yet, but may or may not get talked about. Anyway, have a good day.